Hey everybody, and welcome to Gong Labs Live episode 13, the weekly sales show bringing you tips, tricks, and insights to help you as a sales professional be the best that you can. Get better, close more deals, make more money, and then no problems, according to Torres BIG. Now, if you've already checked out the show before, thank you very much. Go ahead and tag a friend who would get FOMO from missing out on today's episode. If you're brand new, go ahead and click follow on the Gongs page on LinkedIn. You'll get a notification every week when we air the show, and you'll also get firsthand access to the rest of our content. Lastly, we're creating an email subscription list to give you access to previously aired episodes, as well as a heads up for future interviews we have around the corner. You also get access to an optional calendar invite you can add to your calendar so you know where to be every week to catch Gong Labs Live, which is Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific. Go ahead and comment add me right now if you want to be added to that list, and we'll reach out for details. Now, before we dive into the content for this week's episode, we're going to shoot over to Chris Orlov for his quick tips for closers.
When you're negotiating with your customer and they're demanding a steep discount, do not respond with a counteroffer. It's a race to the bottom, and you're essentially negotiating with yourself when you do it. Instead, ask them this question: can you help me understand what you're trying to achieve with this discount? When they respond, they'll feel like they're in control of the interaction, but at the same time, it gives you the negotiating power to unpack the root cause behind the ask and put you in a better position to come to a win-win.
This week, we're breaking apart the sales phrases that are killing your deals and what you can say instead. Before we get started, go ahead and comment right now your least favorite sales word or phrases that you use or that you hear. Now, if you break apart why exactly sales phrases are bad, it's usually because they're either ineffective or lazy. Now, in a sales career, you say a lot of the same things over and over again, so it's really natural for humans to start to find ways to cut corners, and that's where lazy sales phrases come into play. The other hand is ineffective sales phrases, which are really on the right track, but just need to be reframed a little bit to get the effective response that you're looking for. So we're first going to start off with our lazy sales phrases. These are things that we're just going to cut all together. And the first one is just checking in.
Just checking in. Just checking in.
Just checking in. Now, this is by far the most annoying sales phrase from the eyes of a prospect because it's a zero value add and you're actually putting the context on them. And by that, I mean, it's up to them to figure out what exactly are we talking about. Then they have to formulate an answer, and chances are they're just going to ignore you or click delete if it's an email. So instead of saying just checking in, what we're going to do is two things. One, we're going to add context. What is it exactly that you're checking in on? And two, we're going to swap it for does it make sense? So for example, let's say you're waiting for an update on a legal review. Don't say, "Hi Keith, just checking in to see if you have any updates." Instead, try, "Hi Keith, are there any updates on the legal review process? Our team is on standby if you have any concerns." So what we're doing here is giving Keith context so he knows exactly what it is we're reaching out about and what we're hoping for a response. This will make it really quick and easy for him to reply, and that will increase the volume of your responses, assuming we're going over email. The second tip is to swap the checking in for does it make sense to. And what this does is instead of jumping right into assuming a dialogue even makes sense, is saying, hey, should we connect and talk through these things? As you can see from the example here, something you don't want to do is, "Hi Mira, just checking in. Do you have 30 minutes to meet?" What you do want to say is, "Hi Mira, has timing aligned to regroup? When we last spoke, May was a better time to revisit how we can insert value prop for your team. Does it make sense to reconnect on Tuesday?" By asking, does it make sense, what you're really doing is surfacing, does it make sense for you guys to connect at all, instead of just assuming that you need some of their time. What this will do is start to surface to you a positive or a negative response, but both are good. You're either going to know exactly why you should be meeting and you'll get the time, or you'll know that, hey, it doesn't actually make sense yet, and you'll probably get an objection that you can handle, and that will help you continue on that conversation. So remember, over email, attention spans are short and you have a limited amount of words to burn. So instead of using filler words like just checking in, swap it for context and does this make sense? And last thing, don't even think about swapping just checking in for touching base. That's its ugly cousin and we don't even want to go there. Phrase number 2 is any questions.
Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
This is the most cringe-worthy question used across sales teams, and it's used everywhere. I used it myself until recently. And the reason why we use it is we don't really have a good question lined up, so salespeople feel the need to spark a dialogue, and we lean for, any questions? Just like just checking in, the question, any questions, is lazy, and it puts all of the work on your prospect to come up with something to say. Instead, say, what part of this is most interesting to you? And then pause. Stop talking and wait for them to respond. What you're gonna get is one of three answers. Either what's most interesting and why, a question/objection because nothing's interesting yet, or three, they'll just flat out say no or nothing. The good part is all three of those answers are in your favor. Now, no one's gonna pick the third option because between you and your prospect, and especially if they have any colleagues in the room, no one's gonna wanna say nothing is most interesting to them. It's a conversation killer, you yourself sound not interesting, and so that probably won't happen. What will happen is one of the first two things where you either say, oh great, this is a fit because they're telling you what they're interested in and they're starting to kind of convey the value back to you. Or two, like I said, you're gonna get an objection that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and that's still good because it's gonna keep the conversation moving forward. Number 3 and 4 on our list today is list price and rack rate. Now this might come as a surprise to a lot of people because it's the norm for a lot of sellers when your pricing dialogue gets brought up. The problem is what it does is it invites negotiation. You're essentially removing all credibility from your pricing and saying, hey, here's our list price, go ahead and take a hack at it. We both know there's gonna be some heavy discounting going on, and that's not what you want. According to Gong data, when you say any of these words, list price, typical price, or standard price, at any point in a deal, you can expect your sales cycle to extend 19% longer than when you don't use these terms. Now, I wouldn't expect this slight change to remove all discounting requests or negotiations from your deals, but at the very least, you're gonna have a much higher level of confidence and a stronger pricing conversation. Sales phrase number 5 that we're getting rid of today is picking your brain.
And I just kind of wanted to pick your brain and see what you thought about the information I sent over.
Apart from being played out, from the recipient's end, this doesn't sound like a very enjoyable task. And the reason why is the recipient is being asked to give something before they're getting something in return. Even if it's on a cold email or simply asking for time in the middle of your sales process, by asking to pick their brain, you're asking them to stop what they're doing, download a bunch of their knowledge to you, and it's not always sure what the get is back for them. Here's what not to do. Hey Marie, just touching base following my last email. I'd like to pick your brain on your web optimization tactics and share best practices from our 2,000 plus clients. Do you have 15 minutes tomorrow? Instead, why not start with the give first mentality? Here's what to try instead. Hey Marie, I've identified 2 key areas where we can impact your web optimization results, specifically following our work with other AI-based data labeling organizations. What's the best time for us to connect this Thursday to review? This approach is more ideal because the recipient is getting value immediately and then being offered a dialogue later. So go ahead and swap this tactic with the ask first mentality and watch your responses increase in warmth and volume. And our final sales phrase that we're getting rid of is just wanted to. It fails on every level because it's casual, it's passive, and it's selfish by definition. And I understand where it comes from. We use it socially all the time, and it spills over into our sales conversations. When we use it by voice, it's not really a problem. You don't always notice it, but it's a real no-go when you use it over email. Because you think of it this way, if you open up an email and it says, hey Devin, just wanted to ... before you even open up the whole email, you know it's something about them. And that's gonna lower your response rates. So instead, what we're gonna wanna do is reframe the question and add some context as to what we want. So instead of leading with what you want, start with why you're reaching out. If you start there, if they're interested, they will respond. Here's an example. Here's what not to do. Hey Morgan, just wanted to make sure you have the agreement. Did you get it? Instead, be direct and more proactive. Hi Morgan, I'm reaching out to ensure you received the agreement. Can you please confirm? You'll notice a small difference, but it has a psychological effect that will increase your response rates with your prospects. You're not a lazy sales rep. You're always looking for ways to improve your sales approach. So cut these 6 sales phrases out of your vocabulary today and watch your conversations level up immediately. Now, as always, the weekly sales meme. First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. But when the prospect won't buy, but won't stop talking either, puts you in a tough spot. I've been there. Don't forget to follow Gong on LinkedIn. We'll catch you next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific.